Imagine walking through an ancient forest where the world feels older than memory itself. The canopy filters the sun into fragments of gold, the ground soft beneath your boots, the air alive with the scent of bark and damp earth. Then you notice something that doesn't belong and yet feels like it always has. A massive tree, its trunk impossibly wide and hidden in the bark. A door, not a fantasy, not a fairy tale, but a real human-made sanctuary concealed inside living wood. This idea of shelter hidden in nature has existed for thousands of years, used by hermits, scouts, resistance fighters, and survivalists who understood one truth modern society often forgets. The best shelter is the one that looks like it was never built at all. Today, we're uncovering how a hollow tree can become a secret living pod, rooted in historical survival knowledge, ancient craftsmanship, and modern restraint. And if you enjoy deep dives into forgotten survival methods, historical ingenuity, and real-world techniques that still work today, take a second right now to like this video, share it with someone who loves history as much as you do, drop a comment below, and subscribe to Warcraft Serval so you never miss stories like this. Now let's step inside the tree and get straight to the knowledge. The ancient logic of living inside trees, long before cabins, bunkers, or concrete shelters, humans used the landscape itself as protection. Hollow trees were used across Europe, Asia, and parts of Africa as temporary dwellings, storage chambers, and concealment points. In medieval forests, shepherds slept inside old oaks to escape storms. In wartime Europe, resistance fighters hid supplies and people inside massive hollow trunks that were invisible from the outside. A living tree offers insulation, camouflage, and structural strength that no man-made wall can replicate. The wood regulates temperature naturally, staying cooler in summer and warmer in winter. When chosen correctly, the tree becomes both shield and shelter. Choosing the right tree is the difference between shelter and disaster. Historically, the mistake most people made was choosing a dead or dying tree. A hollow does not mean weakness if the surrounding living wood is thick and healthy. Ancient builders favored oak, sycamore, chestnut, and redwood because their fibers remain strong even when hollowed. The key is balance. The hollow must be large enough for a person to occupy, but the outer wall must remain structurally sound. Old survival manuals emphasize testing the tree by sound, striking it and listening for deep resonance rather than brittle cracks. Location mattered just as much. Trees on slopes prone to erosion or floodplains were avoided. A perfect tree was not just big, it was stable, rooted, and protected from prevailing winds. Preparing the hollow the historical way once selected, the hollow was never aggressively carved. Ancient builders worked with what existed, removing loose debris, rotted material, and soil by hand to avoid stressing the living wood. Moisture was the true enemy. Historical techniques involved elevating the sleeping area slightly above ground level using stones, bark slabs, or wooden platforms to prevent dampness and cold seepage. Modern builders replicate this logic with vapor barriers and drainage layers, but the principle remains unchanged. Dry ground equals survival. A hollow tree that stays dry becomes habitable for decades. Building a floor that respects the tree, the floor was always considered the foundation of comfort. In historical examples, woven branches, split logs, or fitted planks were laid carefully without fastening directly into the tree's living tissue. This prevented rot and allowed the tree to continue growing naturally. Insulation came from trapped air, layered bark, moss, and later wool or straw. Today, pressure-treated wood and foam insulation mirror the same purpose with better efficiency. But the guiding rule is unchanged. Never pierce more than necessary. Never fight the tree's movement. Shaping the interior without killing the host. One of the most fascinating aspects of tree dwellings is restraint. Builders never squared the interior like a cabin. They followed curves, smoothed surfaces, and sealed the wood with natural oils, resins, or waxes. This preserved flexibility and prevented cracking. The result was a space that felt organic rather than constructed. Historically, niches were carved directly into the walls for storage, candles, or tools, eliminating the need for furniture. The tree itself became the structure, the shelves, the walls, and the ceiling. Hidden comforts, then and now ancient tree shelters, were not primitive in spirit. They included ventilation gaps disguised as knots, reflective surfaces to amplify firelight, and layered sleeping platforms for warmth. Modern adaptations add low heat lighting, concealed wiring, and discrete water systems. But the philosophy remains identical. Nothing visible from the outside, nothing that harms the tree. The most successful designs are the ones that disappear entirely into the forest, even at arm's length. The door that no one sees historically. Entrances were always aligned with natural scars, burls, or bark seams. Doors were camouflaged with moss, bark plates, or hinged wood slabs shaped to the trunk. Handles were branches. Hinges were leather or wood. From a distance, the tree remained just a tree. This principle of visual silence is why such shelters survived wars, patrols, and centuries of passing eyes. Why this still matters today. This is not about fantasy or novelty. It's about understanding how humans once lived with the land instead of on top of it. A hollow tree shelter teaches patience, observation, and respect skills that defined survival long before modern gear existed. It reminds us that decay can become strength, that concealment can be comfort, and that the smartest shelters are the ones nature already began building for us. If this deep dive into forgotten survival history gave you something new to think about, make sure you're subscribed to Warcraft Serval. Share this with a fellow history lover. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and stay with us as we continue uncovering the survival knowledge the modern world left behind.